In this video, I'm going to show you how to get set up using Loop to start accepting crypto payments. Now, the first thing we're going to need to do is create an entity. An entity just represents a merchant within the Loop ecosystem, a merchant being someone like Netflix or Spotify, but it could also represent a platform like Amazon or eBay that itself has sub-merchants. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to go through the direct merchant flow. There are a couple of ways to create this entity using the API directly or setting up the SDK. Because the entity creation process only happens once, I'm just going to show that using the API directly, and I'll go through setting up the SDK a little bit later in this video. So this is the create entity endpoint. All of the other API endpoints are available in our docs under the API reference section. So if we look at the request body for this create entity request, we'll just go through some of the parameters that it requires. So obviously, entity name, this is the name of the entity or the merchant that you're creating. So we'll just call this Works. An email address that's associated with this account. And then payment types. Now, a payment type is basically just the token on the network that the merchant is willing to accept payment on. For example, me as the merchant, I want to accept USDC on base. For my payments, I will set that up as a payment type. Now, for each network that we set up a payment type for, we need to specify a settlement type. And the settlement type is basically just whether you want the funds coming in to be settled in crypto or in fiat. So if it's crypto, it'll just go directly to, or the funds will go directly to the payout destination that you specify down here. If you specify your settlement type as fiat, those funds will automatically get off-ramped into a bank account that you set up. So again, for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to set my settlement type to crypto and then set a payout destination address where I want these funds to go when I get paid. And then as far as the tokens that I want to accept USDC on Sepolia network. So those are the only payment types I'm going to set up for now. I'm going to show you how to add additional payment types a little bit later using the SDK. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create this entity and send the request. Now, the response you'll get back includes an entity ID. This is important because it'll be needed for any future API requests, as well as this API key that gets created. So this is your initial kind of admin API key, so make sure you save this somewhere so that you can make additional API requests and also set up the SDK. So I'm actually just going to save that entire response so that we can use it. Other things to note in here, basically just the payout destinations that you've set. So the payout destination with this wallet address got associated with the network, settlement type of crypto, and it just gets a payout destination ID, which you can use in the API calls to kind of filter for specific payout destinations. And then here your payment types, like I said, USDC on Sepolia. This is the actual token address that it'll be using, and then a little bit of metadata about the token itself. Okay. So at this point, we have our entity created. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to the SDK and just make a call to get the entity, just to kind of show how that works. So in our SDK over here, I'm just going to set up the entity ID and API key that I got back from my response. So I'm going to put those in my environment variables. So I'm going to go back and copy the entity ID and the have those set. The To set up the SDK, basically download the package, install it, import the Loop Crypto package over here, and then basically just initialize it like this using the entity ID and API key as input parameters. And then once you have a handle on the SDK, you can start to kind of use it. So the first one that I want to show you real quick is just the entities object, and we're just going to retrieve the entity that we just created. So if I run this, you'll see that I get back basically the response that I got from the post request. The only additional information here which will be of interest is the contract address that got deployed. So this is the contract address on Sepolia that got deployed for this entity. As we add additional payment types on other networks, contracts will be deployed on those networks as well. Okay. So at this point, we basically have enough to start accepting payments and getting authorization and payments from users. So I'm going to flip over to doing that, and I'm going to do that by using our pay widget, which looks like this. So this over here is basically the component. This is available to just drop into any kind of checkout flow that you have already, and it basically just abstracts away all of the complexities of connecting a wallet, making the API calls, getting wallet signatures that are required for those API requests, etc. So yeah, just makes it very easy for you to drop stuff in there. Now, as I said, this is the component right here. All of the stuff around here is basically just configuration details. This is our kind of like demo page for the widget. So all of this are all just configuration parameters for the widget itself that you can kind of go and set up. You can change colors and that sort of thing. So the main things I'm going to just set up here is obviously the entity ID that we want to use, and this widget obviously requires some form of authentication. So you can either put the API key directly in, or you can generate a JWT token. I'm going to go ahead and create a JWT token or an authentication token. So we'll just use my entity ID that I created because I want this token to be available for this entity. Now the difference between this API call and the previous one is this is an authenticated endpoint, so you would need to pass through the entity ID as a header parameter, as well as the API key. So once we've done that, I'm going to create an authentication token for this entity, and I'm going to set the expiration time to 1 hour, just so that it's a short-lived token. So I'm actually going to go and I need to update the API key and the entity ID. Okay, send my request, and this is the API, the token that gets generated, so I can copy that and paste it into here. Okay, so once I've done that, now this component is now initialized to use this entity to make payments. A couple of other parameters that I just want to go through real quick. So the payment amount, how much you want to charge the user. So I'm just going to set this to $1. This is a value in cents, so 100 cents equals $1. The minimum authorization amount, this is the authorization amount that the user will be setting to give to Loop. So I want to set this just as an example to $100 just for this demo. And now basically, there's the last field is customer reference ID. So this is any kind of reference ID that you have in like your own billing system or whatever, and you want to pass that through to Loop to link those two customers. You can do that using this customer reference ID. So I'm just going to pass through a reference ID of test customer. And then, so at this point now, the widget is configured and it's ready to use. The user can then go to the checkout page and connect their wallets and pay. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to click connect. I'm going to connect a MetaMask wallet. Just going to connect this one because I know there's money in there. Okay, so at this point, I can now select the network because the payment type for the entity is only on Sepolia, and USDC was the only token that was specified for that payment type. Those are the only options that I have here. So I've selected my network, I've selected my token, and I've connected my wallet. So those three things in combination basically represent a payment method within the Loop system. So when I click pay, a couple of things are going to happen. The customer is going to get created. The payment method is also going to get created. That payment method being this wallet address, this token, and this network. That payment method is going to get linked to the customer. And then lastly, a PayIn is going to get created, that initial PayIn to charge the user. And I think that's kind of the advantage of using this component is the component abstracts away all of that complexity for you. You don't need to worry about making those calls. It just kind of does it all for you. So at this point, I'm ready to kind of make the payment as the user. So this will bring up a transaction to sign. I also need to sign a message to prove that I actually own this wallet. So one of the parameters that is required when adding a new payment method via the API is a wallet authorization signature, and that's just to prove that you own the wallet that you're creating the payment method for. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and click pay over here. Brings up the authorization, setting my authorization to 100. I'm going to confirm that, and that 100 came from this parameter over here. So now it's updating my authorization on chain right now. So we'll just give that a second to confirm. Okay, and now I'm signing the message to create the payment method within the Loop system. So I'm going to confirm that. Now it's saving my payment method, and it's creating the PayIn as well. PayIn was created, and now it's confirming on chain. You'll see the transaction hash over here, so we'll just wait for this payment to go through. This is just for the $1 payment. You'll see it's been updated to payment complete. So if I go to this transaction hash over here, I should be able to see, let's give it a second to index. Okay, well, we're waiting for that. We'll just kind of continue to go through here. So at this point, the user has given Loop authorization to spend on their behalf, and we've created the initial PayIn. So now let's just go and take a look at some of that in the SDK, just making some SDK calls to kind of see what that looks like. So I'm going to use, I think this should have actually been confirmed by now. So if we go back here, yeah, you'll see the transaction was successful, payment was made, and yeah, basically transaction was done. Okay, so now if we use this test customer reference ID and go back to our SDK, we can now use our SDK to customers.search customer reference ID, and we'll use that customer reference ID that we set up over there. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to print that out to the screen. So this is basically just going to go and fetch that customer that we just created via the widget. So you'll see it comes back with a customer ID, the payment method that was saved for that user, which was this wallet address on this network using USDC as the token. Now there's a couple of extra bits of information here just around the token itself. The exchange rate for that token right now is basically 1-to-1 to USD and USDC. So that's always provided back in the response. And then there's also this pre-authorization section down here, basically just telling you what the wallet balance is, and that's specific for this payment method. So USDC for this wallet address, the balance is that, and then their authorization amount is 99. We originally set it to 100. We created that first payment of $1, so it's gone down by $1, so the authorization that's left is 99. This is a very useful kind of response to get, because you can use this to determine whether the next payment that you're going to charge the user will succeed or not. So if you want to charge the customer $150, for example, that transaction is likely to fail because the authorization amount is only 99, so they don't have enough authorization. So at that point, you can kind of reach out to the user and kind of do whatever process you need to kind of get them to make sure that the payment succeeds. But this is a very useful kind of property to be able to determine those sort of things. Okay, so that was the customer, and then if we wanted to get the pay-in that just got created, we could do that as well. We could use the PayIn SDK, payins.search. Okay, we search for that PayIn. So we'll see this PayIn comes back, gives you information about the PayIn itself. So the PayIn status over here is complete, which means the payment's being completed. And then some metadata about the transaction itself. This is the transaction hash. This is the link to the block explorer for that transaction. This is the amount transferred. This is obviously in the token amount. And then the exchange rate that was used at the time of the transfer itself is over there. This is the payment method that was used. The customer it relates to, the payout destination those funds went to, and then obviously credit dates, that sort of thing. So this is the that particular pay-in. Now this next part is really the power of Loop and the power of that like authorization that the user gave. So now for any subsequent payments, I can now create pay-ins and charge that user's payment method. If they've signed up for a subscription, I can then kind of charge that payment method going forward. So how do I do that? So I'm going to create a new pay-in using the SDK. So I'm going to use my same pay-ins object. I'm going to say create, and then this takes in a couple of required fields. Again, you can go and check out the docs to see which of those are the required fields and which are the optional fields as well. There are a bunch of options to be able to pass in. So the first parameter that we need to pass in is the merchant ID. Then we need to say what the amount type is going to be. So we can either charge, we can specify the amount type as fiat or the crypto amount. And that amount is this amount here. So we're saying this amount here represents a fiat amount. So this is again in cents. So I want to charge $1.50. So 150 cents. And this amount here is represented as a fiat amount. I could have had this as crypto and then specified this as the crypto amount. So if I wanted to charge like 0.05 with for an item, I could do that and specify the with amount here with the amount type as crypto. So just for simplicity, I'm just going to use it as fiat. And then the build date, we're going to need to specify the build date. So this is the date on which this pay-in will be processed. A build date of 0 means process immediately. A build date in the future will just mean that Loop will save that pay-in, and then once that build date rolls around, Loop will automatically charge for that pay-in on that date. It won't process it anytime before that date, but as that date comes around, we will process that payment. One of the optional parameters here, well, no, it's actually not an optional parameter, but we need to say who we want to charge, right? So we want to charge the specific customer that kind of signed up. So we'll need to go and grab the customer ID from either the customer's endpoint or I've got the pay-in endpoint from the previous one here. So I'm just going to use this. I'm going to charge the same customer over here. And yeah, this is all I need to do to create the pay-in. So what this will do is it will obviously create the pay-in, charge the user because they've already given us an authorization. That payment will then execute on chain, and the user's balance will be kind of deducted. So let's go and run that and go through what the response to that is. Okay, so obviously we get the pay-in ID over here. The amount that was charged, the amount type, all the things that we kind of put in. Then the pay-in status here is pending. A pay-in status of pending means it's been submitted on chain and it's just waiting to be finalized. You can go and the transaction metadata is here as well, so you'll be able to go and see the pending transaction hash. No transfer has been executed yet because it's still in the pending state, and then the rest of the response is the same as the get pay-in. Shows you the payment method that was charged, the customer's pre-authorization. So this is the wallet balance at the time that the payment was created. And this status is basically just saying the status of the pre-auth is okay. So this payment will likely succeed. And then this is the payout destination that the funds are going to go to. So now we can then go and query this pay-in to go and see if it's actually been executed on chain. So we do fire off webhooks when payments do complete. So you don't need to go and query or poll this pay-ins to go and see when it's completed. We do fire off webhooks on the change of status of a pay-in. But just because I haven't set up any webhooks right now, I'm just going to go and grab that pay-in that we just created, which had this ID, and we should get back a status of completed with all of the details, which we do. So the payment has been completed. The webhook water fired as soon as that payment was confirmed on chain. But this is just another way that we can go and get the updated status for that pay-in, and then the response is the same as it has been. So status, the transaction, the payment methods, the payout destinations, etc. Okay, and so that pretty much concludes this kind of this video. I just in summary, to recap, we basically created the entity, set up some payment methods, set up a payout destination where those funds will go, and got a user, got the user's authorization, charged that user the initial payment, and then created subsequent payments and charged that user's payment method on file, and was able to take their payments. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that video. Keep an eye out for my next one.